Hello, everyone. Eric Hörst here with Training Café. It's been a few weeks. I was traveling and did a couple of training cafes from on the road, but now I'm back home and I'm going to get back on a regular schedule, I promise you, where we can commune together with our coffee and talk climbing and training. And in this episode, the first Olympic sport climbing, which is something I'm really excited about. And I'm going to begin today's live stream talking in detail about, and then I will get to your training questions. You can enter them into the comments box and I will view them and hopefully be able to answer most of your questions before we're all done. About 45 minutes or maybe an hour from now, we'll see. But first, let's begin with coffee. This is when we climbers unite. Climbers around the world drink coffee together and talk training for climbing. Let's go. I hope you love coffee as much as I do. It's tough to train or climb without some coffee first. I bet you agree, right? As you're tuning in here today, also, if you're a first-time viewer, or even if you're not, maybe type into the comments box where you're viewing from, because one thing that is beautiful about the Training Cafe is that climbers around the world visit and join in, and it's a global community we're building here. And of course, I encourage you to spread the word about Training Cafe. We're doing this every other Monday at noon Eastern time. And if you have some friends that you think might enjoy this or would want to ask some training questions of Coach Hörst, then invite them to tune in the future. Though they can always view the Training Cafe on demand after the fact, because all of these episodes are stored on the Training for Climbing YouTube channel. So you can go back and entertain yourself or scan through topics of past training cafes and maybe find something that's really relevant or important to you at this time. Okay, so yeah, I was on a climbing trip. I was out in Colorado and Wyoming traveling with my wife, and intersected my kids a couple of times, which was fun. You know, they're kind of out of the house doing their own thing, being 18 and 20 years old. But it's fun to belay the boys and see them crushing, and also fun to just meet climbers around the country and talk training at the Crags or at a festival, the Lander Climbers Festival, the International Climbers Festival, as they call it, which I've been going to for decades, since the 1990s. That is in Lander, Wyoming, home of the world famous wild iris climbing area. And it's a good time where every year I teach a clinic, and there's a variety of festival activities. If you haven't been to Lander for the Climbers Festival, that's something you might want to do some year. And if you're from abroad, maybe fly into the States for a month of climbing and come by Lander the second week of July, which is typically about when they have that festival. But let's move on to talk about the Olympic festival that is occurring in Tokyo right now. For older climbers like myself, there's been talk of climbing becoming an Olympic event for 30 years. I remember back in 1990 when the first couple of snowbird competitions occurred here, and international climbers came to the United States and competed. And there was a buzz and an excitement about this new sport climbing. And they thought, it would be in the Olympics in just a few years. Well, that didn't happen. And over 30 years, there's been several rounds of effort to get climbing into the Olympics. And it finally came to fruition in the last few years with the acceptance of climbing as kind of a trial sport here in the Tokyo Olympics. When they accepted us, weren't going to guarantee that it would be an ongoing thing, though it has since been confirmed that climbing will continue in the Olympics, at least for 2024 in France. So that's a good thing. And also the format is going to change a little bit between now and then. While there's tremendous excitement about climbing now being in the Olympics, the three disciplines, speed, bouldering, and sport climbing, are not this time getting individual medals, which is how it should be. like gymnastics or swimming or track and field, where they have individual medals for the different events. Climbing doesn't have that. They accepted us into the Olympics here in 2020 in Tokyo as a combined event. So you will be scored in how you do in speed, bouldering, and sport, and they will be multiplied. And then that aggregate score will then determine the winner. So, you need to do really well in 2 of the 3 events to have a chance of medaling. That's how it's going to play out. So the people who are speed climbing specialists, who are not built to be route climbers, that's just how climbing is. The physiological requirements of speed climbing are more akin to the 100-meter dash, whereas route climbing is more like the mile or the 1,500-meter run. And those are 2 very different running events. The people who are competing in the 100-meter dash and running aren't competing in the mile, aren't competing in the 1,500-meter. Their bodies look very different. Their training is very different. The energy systems that are required are very different. And so is speed climbing versus route climbing. And bouldering's kind of in between. And so the speed climbers in these combined competitions in recent years leading up to the Olympics, we've noticed they have not done well in bouldering nor in sport climbing. So the combined gold, silver, and bronze will not go to a speed climber. It will go to the person who is the best at bouldering and route climbing and does okay at speed climbing. And so for the men, people who kind of fit that bill, obviously Adam Ondra and Jakob Schubert are great boulderers and lead climbers, and they do pretty well at speed climbing. I mean, they're middle of the pack. They're not great. They're not terrible. Alex Megos, again, a great boulder, a great sport climber. He doesn't like the speed. He obviously attempts to do his best at it, but he's maybe a step down in speed, a little slower than Ondra and Schubert. So he might, I would not rule Alex out. Like, he could win bouldering and win sport and therefore not have to do very well in speed. So he's definitely in play, but I think if you were handicapping, you would say Ondra and Schubert maybe have a little better odds at winning the combined medal. Perhaps the most likely, or the favorite, if you would, is Japan's own Tomoa Narasaki, who has been dominant in the World Cup in recent years. Again, a great boulderer, a great lead climber, and a very good speed climber. So he perhaps is the favorite. Some long shots, though, I would not rule it out. Colin Duffy, the 16-year-old American climber, very good at bouldering and route climbing and pretty good at speed as well. So he could be kind of an underdog coming in that maybe has an outside shot at a podium. For the ladies, well, Janja Gambrit, the Slovenian superstar who's just dominated the World Cup scene the last couple of years. She's, wins most of the World Cup bouldering and lead competitions that she's entered. So if she gets, 2 firsts or a first and a second, and just does okay at speed, she wins the gold. So she would have to have a real off day and not be top 3 in bouldering or lead to not win the gold. And that's highly unlikely, barring illness or injury. So I think she's a heavy favorite, Janja is, to win the gold. Silver, again, probably Japan's Noguchi, Akaru Noguchi, who's a veteran competitor, does well in all 3 events, I guess would be a solid prediction for getting a medal. And perhaps Brooke Rabatou from the USA. Brooke has just been on fire this season. She was on the World Cup circuit previous years and didn't have any podiums, and now all of a sudden this year she's winning medals. She is just, in communicating with her mom, who's a friend of mine, her mom and coach, Robin, I was remarking how well they have got her to peak, Brooke to peak for this season for the Olympics, which that's the goal of every coach and athlete, is to get their athlete to peak, during the Olympic season. And Brooke is indeed peaking. So I think I would love to see Brooke get a medal, obviously, and I think she could do it. She's good at speed, and she's really good at bouldering and sport climbing. So I think I would put her in my top 3 to win medals. Longer shots, not sure. I mean, those 3 just seem like the obvious ones to pick. Mio Nanako, the Japanese climber on her home turf, perhaps could sneak in there. I just, I'm just not sure who else really to mention there that could do really well. We will see. And I should add, especially amongst older guys, like my generation of climbers, there is some, cynicism about climbing being commercial and in the Olympics. And there's definitely a segment of core climbers who, think climbing is about what we do outside, and it's not a commercial sport and shouldn't be a commercial sport. And I get that whole thing, but I couldn't really disagree more, because first of all, climbing is an activity that's life-changing. As you know, as I know, it really makes our life better and richer. It's a great way to stay in shape and to travel and to get in the zone and forget about what's going on in the world for a few minutes when you're on a route is a great thing. And I think more people should climb. The indoor climbing gyms and the Olympic format and promotions will introduce more of the world and more people to climbing. I think that that's a good thing. Yes, if they all went and climbed outdoors, that would not be a good thing in terms of environmental impact. But we're seeing that these cities that put climbing gyms in, 80-90% of the people who are regular gym climbers don't climb outside. So yeah, the numbers are growing outside, but they're not growing at the same rate as the number of climbers is growing. And so the bottom line is, I think climbing, is the best sport. It's an awesome sport, and why not share it with the world, and why not share it on TV? This really interesting activity that we are all so passionate about. Kind of the bad news is I'm not sure how much TV coverage it's going to get, because it is a new sport. It's not something that the average person is familiar with. I know here I was going through our TV listings on Comcast cable, and I went through all the different channels, USA Network and NBC Olympic. I could not find anywhere listed this week climbing being scheduled to be covered on broadcast television, despite the fact there's qualifications Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the finals and the medal awards are on Thursday and Friday. But yet no evidence that it's going to actually be shown on TV here where I live. And perhaps that's the case where you live as well. So I'm not sure that we're going to get much real TV time, though it will stream live, as I understand it, on the internet. I did a little bit of digging around, and what you want to do, at least if you're here in the United States, is go to the NBCOlympics.com, and that is where they are doing the live streaming. And the qualifications begin tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. Eastern time. So where I'm at in the Eastern United States, 4 a.m. I think if you're in Europe, like GMT time, that would be 4 a.m. I guess is there a 4-hour difference, something like that. So maybe it's 8 a.m. if you're in the United Kingdom. If you're in Mountain Time, United States, it would be 2 a.m. If you're in Pacific Time, 1 a.m. You'll need to be up at 1 a.m. if you want to begin to watch it live the next few mornings. But again, you may need to do it on your computer at the NBCOlympics.com website. One thing I noticed when I logged into it yesterday here is that it asked me to enter my cable provider. So that does make me wonder, I had to click on Comcast Xfinity then once I went to that NBC Olympic website. You may need to do that too. And so if you don't have a cable provider that you're paying for service, as I am here at my house, I don't know if they're going to lock you out or if they're going to try to charge you. I mean, there's still a little bit of an unknown how this will play out. I mean, I guess we'll all find out tomorrow when we try to tune in. And hopefully it'll be also available on demand in case you aren't able to watch live or don't want to get up that early. I kind of think I am going to set my alarm and get up early to watch it live, just because I fear, since we all have these in our hands, it would be so easy to kind of get a spoiler if you were waiting to watch it later in the day. It might be tough to not find out what happened. So I think I'm going to commit to getting up 4 mornings at, the next 4 mornings at 4 a.m. here in Pennsylvania to watch the Olympics and cheer on all the athletes that I'm so stoked to see. And hopefully it'll be a good show for the first time around. Okay, I'm just looking at my notes here. I guess that pretty much covers everything I wanted to mention here about the Olympics. So let's shift gears. Let's talk about your questions for Coach Hörst. And I see some folks have been typing them in here in the last few minutes, and even a few people got them in ahead of time. So let's go through here and see what we got, and hopefully some of these will connect with you. Even if you don't have a question you want to type in an answer, hopefully you can learn a little bit here on the fly as we go through. And so this question is about building finger strength. Is only max hangs, is that the way to go? Or should some repeaters be done in the attempt to get some hypertrophy? And people in weightlifting traditionally talk about the importance of hypertrophy for getting stronger, growing bigger muscles. But that's not really something climbers should be seeking to do. If you look at the Olympic boulderers and route climbers especially, there's not a lot of hypertrophy. Yes, they have low body fat. Yes, they are very strong and very ripped because they have low body fat, but they don't have big muscles because we are in a strength to weight ratio sport. So I don't think anybody should, any serious climber, the exception being speed climbing, perhaps. The speed climbers are built like sprinters. I already talked about why that is. They have a different, genotype of what you want in terms of, performing your best. But for boulderers and route climbers, it's about strength to weight ratio and power to weight ratio. And so hypertrophy isn't something you should really be seeking. If your muscles, in your climbing muscles, your arms get a little bigger, I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. But if you are getting heavier, larger leg muscles, bigger shoulder muscles, if you are gaining weight as part of your training for climbing program, that's long-term not your goal. If you're new to climbing and start training, you will put on some muscle mass. But the adaptations we're after are more the nervous system and connective tissues, which respond to brief, powerful movements and high load movements, and hence those type of recruitment protocols like max hangs, weighted hangs, min edge hangs, weighted pull-ups, one-arm pull-ups, things like that are very central to a program of becoming a stronger, more powerful climber year over year. And doing some things that train strength endurance, like repeaters, are a very important part of the program as well, because we do need to develop strength endurance, and even for route climbers, aerobic endurance. But you don't want to go on a course that is going to build a lot of muscle bulk. And so a little bit of hypertrophy in your forearms, sure. But otherwise, that shouldn't be something you're seeking as, say, a bodybuilder would. Okay, so let's move on here. Question here. Sounds like he has 2 training days a week. One is strength power. The other is more capacity, anaerobic and aerobic capacity, wants to add some foot on campus training days. Foot on campus. So not the regular arm over arm or double dynos, but really having your feet on the floor or a chair and doing some quick movements at far less than body weight, because your feet are holding some of your weight. And so that's a way to do quick, powerful movements, alactic type training that is hard to do at body weight. You need to have a way of reducing body weight. So that's hence the foot on protocol. And really, I think that would be best done on your strength power day. It is a lactic training, even though the recovery between your foot on campus training is very aerobic. That recovery process is aerobic, and that is a method of training aerobic power. You really want to classify it as alactic or max strength power training, and I would do it on that day. Not on the very pumpy endurance days. I don't think I would do it then. Okay, moving on to Tyler. Lives in a climate that has 3 great seasons for climbing. Lucky you. I live in a climate where we have like 1 good season, that being the fall, but that's another topic. Wondering about staying in performance mode for 9 months, or how to introduce some training in there, some specific training, because he has 3 climbing seasons and really only 1 off season to do a serious training block. So yeah, that 1 off season, that's where you would do like a more serious training block. If there's one energy system that's really holding you back or weaker than the other 2, you can dedicate time during that off season to improving that one area while maintaining the other 2 areas. And then during your 3 seasons or your 9 months of performance climbing, I think you kind of want to have some kind of a cycle, mesocycle within that 9-month period, where maybe you have, 4 weeks, a month of performance climbing where you're getting outdoors as often as you can, given, adequate rest days in between. And so your 4 weeks of performance climbing, and then maybe shift gears to 2 or 3 weeks where maybe you're climbing less outdoors and you're doing kind of a little mini training block where you might do 1 max strength and power session per week, weighted hangs, campus boarding, hard bouldering, things like that. And maybe 1 endurance session in the gym per week where you're doing repeaters or route intervals or bouldering 4x4s on the system wall or on the bouldering wall. And so during that 2-week kind of break from performance climbing, you still might get outdoors, say 1 day a week, but you would be indoors 2 or 3 days a week to kind of train up, or again, kind of keep up or maintain your finger strength and your power. Because if you just climb outdoors, like I was just on a trip for, over a month, and no doubt I lost finger strength and I lost power during that month because I was route climbing for a month. I wasn't hangboard training. I wasn't bouldering or campusing or doing anything because I was out performance climbing. And so you do tend to lose your edge in terms of strength and power. A lot of pro climbers will schedule a trip where they go somewhere for 3 or 4 weeks. They go to Sayus to work on their project. And then they go home and train for 2 or 3 weeks to get back their strength and power back up to peak levels. And then they go back, to performance climbing. And so I think that's the approach I would take. If I was lucky enough to have a 9-month climate season that's good for climbing, I just wouldn't climb for 9 months. I would still find ways to have within there brief spells of training to kind of keep my edge up. Okay, thank you for tuning in again here. I'm glad you enjoy the content. And yes, lady crushers, I often comment about, guys that I look up to. I'm in my 50s, and, guys that are climbing hard in their 50s or 60s. And there are women, obviously, that do it very well. 2 that come to mind right away. Lynn Hill, who's a couple of years older than me, still, I'm sure, can on-site 513 and climb very hard. Robin Erbesfeld, Rabitu, Brooke Rabitu's mom and coach, is about my age, maybe a year or two older. And I know just in the last couple of years, she's red pointed 514 and stays in wonderful shape and training shape. And some lesser known climbers, I can think of a couple of females in their 60s who climb 512, 513, just kind of average folks who love climbing and stay in shape and are still motivated. So no doubt there are many women climbers that are crushing at kind of the master's level still. So that is something that I'm proud to always mention, is that, climbing is a sport where females have just as many advantages, perhaps more, in terms of flexibility, and women have just inherently a stronger aerobic energy system, which lends itself to excelling at rock climbing. And so there are a lot of women crushers out there, a lot that climb harder than I do, that's for sure. And that's really inspiring and pretty awesome. Okay. Dustin, congrats on your son sending Bone Tomahawk. Yeah, my son Cameron this spring sent his first 515A, a rock called Bone Tomahawk. He just sent another 9A, a 14D a week or two ago at Wild Iris. And my younger son sent a couple of 8C pluses. So it's fun to see the Hörst boys crushing it out there. Proud dad, proud coach. And they're also college students. So they're semi-professional climbers, I guess you would say, but they're college students and working as well. So they are busy and trying to, as many of us are, keep a few balls in the air and climb hard, but also have other areas of their life and our lives that are doing well as well. Okay, on we go. Do you have any issues consuming collagen or whey protein regularly, long term, as in 2+ years? No, as long as it's a high quality product. These products, both collagen and whey protein, come from animals. The whey comes from the milk and cheese industry. Collagen is, there is fish collagen, but most commonly is bovine hide collagen. And so since they come from animals, there is always a question of, what was the animal fed and how was it taken care of? And, some foods, even some plants, have heavy metals in them. There's unfortunately some organic crops have high heavy metal content because of the manure that's put on them that has heavy metals in them. That's not well known, is that some of these foods, both plant and animal, can have heavy metals that probably are near trace doses, but if you consume them every single day for many years, isn't that healthy. I mean, even tuna fish can have a lot of mercury. I have a person I trained who was consuming so much tuna fish that they developed some symptoms of mercury poisoning. And sure enough, he got tested and he was high in mercury. And the doctor asked him, does he eat any tuna? He's like, yeah, 2 cans a day for like years. And so, it's not really a laughing matter. And so it's something you do need to keep in mind if you're eating something every single day. And so getting back to the collagen and the whey protein, if it's coming from a trusted source, I don't think there's any issues. For instance, the PhysiVantage products are all, really premium grade source products that we acquire. And it's hard to make certain things that have zero heavy metals in them. For instance, anything that has chocolate in it. Cocoa tends to have heavy metal in it. If you eat chocolate bars or anything flavored chocolate, it likely has some trace heavy metals in it. And so, it's something to keep in mind, but not something that's alarming. I don't think consuming a serving of whey or a high quality collagen product on a daily basis is going to cause you any problems, but it can certainly have some very strong benefits to it. Question about supercharged collagen distribution in Europe. Yes, we're working on it. I hope I can make an announcement maybe next month on that one, so I'll let you know. Dan Flynn just got back from Rumney. Oh, yeah, it's a great northeastern climbing area, very powerful climbing area. Haven't been there in a few years, but glad to hear you were there and hopefully crushing it. What would be the best way to train sloper grip strength on a hangboard like the Beastmaker 2000, which I have one of those in my house. I really love that board. Or on a small home wall with slopers. Well, there's a couple of things. Sloper training, it still comes down to finger force. It still comes down to how much force you can generate on your DIP joint, which is a matter of how strong your flexor digitorum profundus is in your forearm, because that's the muscle that flexes that distal joint there. So doing half crimp open hand training does strengthen that muscle and make you stronger at sloper grip. But there's other things that come into play, like wrist flexion. So doing some training of your wrist flexors, which are a little different from your finger flexors. So doing some dumbbell wrist curls would strengthen that wrist flexion and help you on sloper. A stronger wrist joint is important on slopers because you impart some force this way, just as you impart some force with the tips of your fingers. So I don't know that you need to actually do specific sloper training to get better at slopers. I mean, that should be part of your program, but I don't think I wouldn't say you can't get better at slopers without training on a sloper. And that Beastmaker does have a sloper hold you can train on. But I think training all of the different grip positions, doing some wrist flexion training is important. And one more thing, holding slopers on a boulder problem or when you're climbing on a wall is just as much about body positioning as it is about strength. Someone with less strong fingers but better ability to reposition their body, to drop knee, hip turn, draw their center of gravity into the wall. If you're on a steep wall trying to hang on a sloper, if you can drop knee and twist and draw your body into the wall, you change the force vectors on your finger. You change where your center of gravity is with regard to your contact point with the rock. And so you take a sloper hold, and by getting your center of gravity in closer to the overhanging wall, you make that sloper hold more positive. You can actually turn it into a square cut or darn near that. And so when you're falling off of slopers on a route or a boulder, the first thing you should ask yourself is, can I position my body better? Can I get in closer to the wall by drop kneeing, hip turning, some other maneuver? And that is just as important as finger strength. So again, climbing is a complex activity, and there is more to climbing hard or harder than getting stronger, though getting stronger is always a good thing. Pete says hi. Hey back. On we go. I have more time than my friends to go climbing outside, and I feel I need more exposure to real rock. Is it a good idea to regularly go bouldering outside by myself? We are primarily route climbers. Well, first of all, it can be fun to go out in nature and recreate yourself. I have bouldered, in my younger days, quite frequently on my own, just because I didn't have somebody to go out with. Though, from a safety standpoint, it's always better to have somebody with you, obviously, to spot you, or if you would get injured, to be able to attend to you. So that being aside, that being said, I think climbing on your own, you could go out and boulder on your own. You could set up some top ropes and do rope soloing on your own. And it could be a real fun experience and be beneficial. Because yes, getting on real rock is important. People who just climb or just train on plastic, but then get outdoors infrequently are handicapped, because, indoor climbing, as fun as it is and as rigorous as it can be, is the indoor walls are a poor representation of outdoor climbing. The amount of nuance required to stand on climbing holds outside is far greater than indoor climbing holds, which are just these blobs that you can place your foot on out of the corner of your eye sometimes. Whereas outdoors, you need to really zero in and be intentional with your foot placements. So nothing can replace that outdoor climbing. And so I think for anybody whose goal is outdoor climbing, you should try to get outside as much as you can to develop those novel outdoor climbing skills. So I'll leave it at that. Yes, Renee and Margarita, you got it. That two people I was thinking of when we were talking here about older climbers. Thank you, Mark. And that last question before Mark was from Belgium, so thank you, Seba. Moving on, kidney stones from whey protein. Well, I've been consuming whey protein for the last 20 years, virtually on a daily basis, and never had a problem. So I think there may be a genetic predisposition to some folks getting kidney stones from certain foods. Certainly, I guess if you don't drink a lot of water, perhaps you're a little more prone to get kidney stones. There may be other things in your diet as well. So if you don't have any past history of having kidney stones, then I don't think it's a concern. I've not heard that as being. But again, there are vast differences in whey protein. If you go to Amazon.com and search whey protein, there will be hundreds, literally hundreds of companies selling you whey protein. And the cheaper ones are what are called whey concentrate. It's the lowest quality of whey. It's got a higher content of carbohydrate and fat and lactose content in there. So it's less ideal for someone in a strength to weight ratio sport like climbing. You are better off with whey isolate, which is more expensive, but it's more pure. It's got it's more than 90% protein. So when you have a scoop, you're not consuming a lot of extra calories from carbohydrated fat. It's virtually free of lactose. And so a very high quality whey isolate is what a strength to weight ratio sport athlete should consume, in my opinion. Whereas the whey concentrate, which has more calories from carbs and fat, maybe if you're a football player or a bodybuilder who wants to bulk up, that might be better, because the excess calories could be useful. In climbing, we would rather eat our calories from food, like vegetables and fruits and nuts and high fiber grains and lean meats. I want to eat my calories and enjoy them and be able to get as much nourishment out of them. And when I'm doing a protein supplement, whether it's collagen or whey, I want it to be as low calorie as can be, and just give me the protein that is in them. And so, again, if you're buying the cheapest whey on the market out there, then who knows what quality is. And by the way, the cheapest wheys are probably coming over on ships from China, so you have no idea what animals the products came from. And so the quality control is not quite the same as, say, Disadvantage weapons grade whey comes from Wisconsin, the cheese industry, where the cattle are taken good care of. They are milked very kindly each morning, and the cheese is made, the whey is scraped off, and then the whey powder is processed and purified and is tasty and healthy. So I'll leave it at that. Try to do your research, and really, when it comes to the supplement industry, you get what you pay for to a large extent. There are some scam products out there. Anything that sounds too good to be true, like take this pill and your testosterone will go up, or take this pill and you will get stronger. Scams, obviously, but the core products like whey isolate are highly valuable and highly beneficial to a hard training athlete such as you and me. So any more questions here before I wrap things up? I've gone through everything that's been entered in here. Any last minute takers? Want to give a shout out or give a comment or want to make an Olympic prediction, going back to the whole Olympics thing, I guess my strong belief is that Janja Gembrit from Slovenia will win gold. I think Brooke Rabatu has a great chance of winning a medal. I would love to see that. And then for the men, well, yeah, obviously Adam Adra and Tomoa Nagasaki, and they would be, I guess, the top two favorites. Jakob Schubert, who recently climbed Perfecto Mundo. He's one of the few climbers to climb 15C outside, and he's a very experienced climber from Austria, has a very good chance of medaling. And my friend Alex Megos has a really good chance as well. If he can have his best ever speed climbing day, then he has a chance of making the podium as well. So we wish Alex good luck and Alfgetz. Someone typed in there, Laura Rigora. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the young Italian climber. She is more of a route climbing specialist. She does well in bouldering, but she's not in Janja's league. Nobody is in Janja's league when it comes to bouldering. I'm not sure how she is on speed, so I would kind of think Laura might be a bit of a long shot, but who knows? She could surprise us as well. I did see there was one website that actually had betting lines out for climbing, so maybe that's more evidence that climbing is kind of going mainstream. Now you can not only bet on football and baseball and boxing or whatnot, but you can go and place your bets on climbing. And I guess I saw Adam Andra was 3-1 odds to win the overall gold. So only Tomoa had higher odds than him. But again, the odds are not necessarily an accurate prediction of who's going to win, because they're just a function of betting and kind of that whole industry knows how to move the numbers so that they always are going to make money on the bets, regardless of whether their odds actually align with the results. And the one odds that I thought seemed a little bit off was Alex Megos was 29-1, which I think he should be a lot higher than that in terms of his odds, of winning. So that will be very interesting. But yeah, the finals, I believe women on Thursday morning and men on Friday morning. And then the next two mornings, Tuesday and Wednesday, the next 2 days are the qualifications. So as I understand it, they're going to cycle them through all three events very quickly. So they're going to come out and qualify on speed, bouldering, and sport climbing, the lead climbing, all in about a 4-hour span. They're going to go through all three events. So that'll be interesting because that's not been done much. There's only been a few events where they've done that. And put the athletes through all three events in the same day, in the same pretty small window. So that'll be a real physical test and somewhat novel for these competitors who have maybe only done that a couple of times. And then for the finals, I think they take the top 8 combined scores, I believe, from the qualifiers, and they go into the finals on Thursday and Friday morning. So, so I see Jonathan Ross here. His prediction is Janja, Laura, and Brooke for the women, and Tomoa, Adam, and Dark Horse Colin. Yeah, I agreed. Colin, a dark horse. I mentioned him earlier. I would love to see him in the mix there. It could definitely happen. Hard to imagine one of the Japanese women not being in the top 3, especially being on their home turf. You got to figure they'd be stoked. And they have such both Noguchi and Nanaka have a lot of experience competing. So kind of think one of them will be in there, but who knows? Laura might pull it off. So that's going to be fun to observe. So again, for me, my generation, we got into climbing for the outdoor experience, not for competition, not for sport, not traditional sport. So it is really kind of wild to see climbing in the Olympics come to fruition. I think it's more a good thing than a bad thing, though. There's some old fuddy-duddies, people my age, who would disagree with that. But I think the younger generation of climbers do appreciate the athletic skill of these competitors and the steely nerves of these competitors. And when you attend one of these events in person, which I was able to attend the Chamonix World Cup a few years ago, and then recently this year the Salt Lake City World Cup. And when you see it in person, it really is fun, to see Janja dominate as she did, or to see young Natalia Grossman. Unfortunately, she's not on the Olympic team for the Americans, but she should be or will be hopefully in 4 years or 3 years at the next Olympics. And if you ever have a chance to watch one of these events live in person, do it, because it might change your opinion of it. So we will see. Okay, well, I guess we're about at the end of the road here. No more questions have come in. I appreciate you tuning back in to Training Cafe with your coffee. And I'm going to get back on a schedule here every other Monday. So we'll see you 2 weeks from today at noon Eastern. Tell your friends, tune in with some good training questions, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then, happy training.